As we know, the report from the Royal Commission is due to be released this November. Within this will be findings from the inquiry into aged care funding, finance and prudential regulations for aged care. In this presentation, we'll be outlining what the introduction of a new assessment and funding models means for operators within the industry, regardless of what will ultimately replace ACFI. So far, there's been a variety of government and business discourse on what this change could look like. The most notable has come from a government commission trial that is developing a case mixed classification tool to underpin a new assessment and funding model for residential aged care in Australia. While the exact timeline and scope of the changes that the new assessment and funding model will bring have not been fully confirmed at the time of filming, we anticipate that this new model, Australian National Aged Care Classification, ANAC, will be a more effective and holistic tool for estimating the funding and staffing requirements for residential aged care in Australia. For those that were around back in 2008, when ACFI replaced RCS, you remember the significant challenges and costs across all levels of aged care organisations that underwent the transition. Since its introduction, ACFI has changed substantially. After an industry review in 2017, it was found that ACFI is no longer fit for purpose, with the main reason being that it is administratively inefficient and costly, and that it's not specific enough to meet the needs and outcomes of a resident while aligning the correct level of funding for their care needs. The ANAC plans to improve upon these shortfalls by introducing a new and improved residential aged care funding and finance landscape, with the potential to extend into home care. Unlike ACFI, ANAC approaches assessments and funding from a holistic perspective, factoring in a resident's physical capacity, cognitive capacity, mental health needs and behaviour. There have also been discussion in the Royal Commission hearing about implementing other assessments and funding models, such as block and activity-based funding, which is similar to some state public health funding models. Other models that align more closely to the current NDIS assessment and funding models have also been spoken about. November will be a very exciting month. While it would be easy to associate the introduction of a new assessment and funding instrument within the aged care industry to only impact finance, funding and assessment teams, the reality is that it will impact all aspects of aged care providers' operations across all levels. And those of you who did experience the transition last time would have a deep understanding and appreciation of how challenging this will be. The implementation of the new assessment and funding model, whatever shape, form or timeline is set, will have a macro effect on all aspects of the organisation. From the new operational framework, workforce planning efficiencies and effectiveness and maintaining improving quality of care outcomes, and commercial viability, visibility and sustainability. It is imperative to get ahead of these changes and plan for the commercial and operational challenges that are on the horizon. Otherwise, service providers will fall behind and it will be a very costly exercise to catch up to industry leaders. You could be forgiven for thinking that these changes will only impact funding and finance within the aged care service provider operations, when in fact, it touches all aspects of the resident journey from inquiry to exit. In terms of the employee journey, workforce planning will require changes and restructure to operational teams. For example, the current ACFI and funding staffing model that aged care operators have in place, such as ACFI teams and coordinators and funding teams, would have to be completely pivoted to more effectively align to the new assessment and funding model. There will also be a need for cohesive organisation learning and development across all levels. Learning and development functions within the organisation will need to be geared up and training materials rolled out across all levels from frontline staff through to executives and their associated teams. All material, instructions, funding guides and documentation will need to be developed for employees and resident communications, with providers needing to plan for the employee to be retrained. Will the assessments occur from a newly created government body or will they remain with the provider? A centralised or decentralised process for assessments is a further complexity that would need to be considered. People, processes and systems will need to transition to the new assessment and funding model that is chosen. Having strong IT and business alignment to support the organisational change management process will be vital to maintain commercial viability and quality of care. And once again, it's not just your finance and funding systems that will need to be updated. Providers' systems will need to change to support the new assessment and funding model. For most providers, this is not just one or two systems, it will be many systems across their application landscape. How the resident's funding information is stored and calculated for business use will impact resident management systems. Clinical management systems will have to be updated to reflect new assessment practices. Revenue planning and forecasting systems will also need to incorporate these changes in revenue models, so providers don't create mountains of manual work and can spend time strategically planning and analysing data rather than spending time on data entry. Sales and resident agreement systems will need to be updated with new funding tool terminology and business rules, and to ensure calculations are correct. Rostering systems, learning and development systems, government systems, and supportive software vendor systems will need to reflect the new assessment and funding tool so aged care providers can upgrade ahead of the change. Just like in 2008 when the industry last went through major funding instrument changes, we will again see massive changes through every level within a provider's environment and how technology and systems strategically fit to manoeuvre around these challenges. Now, we've only briefly taken you through one aspect of residential aged care finance reform. We haven't even touched on changes in home care or retirement villages, capital financing, and prudential regulations. And on top of this, there will be other changes associated with the Royal Commission that will impose upon the industry, including the potential of staffing ratios being mandated and other quality and safety changes. While the idea of these changes can be overwhelming and it will take a lot of change management across multiple areas to implement, it will be less stressful and more cost effective if you strategically plan for these changes now. Rohling International can help you manage this transition smoothly and in a cost-effective manner with our team of aged care industry specialists. We provide consulting on finance strategy, business effectiveness and efficiency improvements, IT strategies and solution, and project delivery. Head to our virtual stand to learn more about how we can help you get ahead of this transition. Thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of the LASA conference.